Hey, it's Broken Office Chair, a podcast produced by Alternatives. Broken Office Chair is hosted by Alternatives Executive Director Bessie Alcantara. Bessie is a Chicago native, first-generation Salvadoran Mexican-American who's passionate about dismantling systemic racism. In each episode, Bessie will be joined by her friends and colleagues who are ready to speak candidly about their experiences as people of color in their various professions. In the episodes, they'll address topics such as issues in the nonprofit sector, racial equity, DEI in practice, and much, much more.
Hello, I am here today with Sufyan Sohel. So I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you so much for having me, Bessie. It's always a pleasure to share space and conversation with you. My name is Sufyan Sohel. I am the chair of the Cook County Commission on Human Rights, as well as a social impact consultant working with several nonprofits on building resiliency and impact during Trump 2.0 these days.
I think it's also notable to point out some of the work that you do with ACLU.
Yeah, I'm a board member of the ACLU, helping lead their equity work on the board level of making sure we're being just cognizant of representing all of Illinois and not just a select few, and making sure the rights of all those living in our wonderful, beautiful state are protected, both their civil rights and liberties. I do a lot of diversity work in supporting DePaul College of Law with some diversity initiatives, as well as the Red Cross of Illinois, just trying to help institutions and organizations make sure that as attacks against diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts are being dismantled, that we're being thoughtful in making sure our most underserved and vulnerable communities stay protected.
So given your background, you have a very interesting seat to what is currently happening, right? Chicago, around this country. I'm going to ask you a really big question.
Please.
What do you think are the most pressing issues?
Great question. I would say the biggest issue that we're facing right now is not an attack on our communities, but the silence within our communities. I think we're being siloed. We are enjoying, some people just are keeping their heads down and living their life like nothing is changing. They're not recognizing how so many of their neighbors and community members are being targeted and attacked. And we need more people to show up and stand up. For example, attack against the LGBTQ communities is increasing. Women's rights is increasing. Muslims, there's a rise of anti-Semitism. People feel that they're alone and lonely, and we're seeing a new travel ban. We're seeing alligator Alcatraz in Florida, and all of these, while they seem like their own individual things, there's threads that connect them all that show that we collectively are thinking of certain people as less. How do we keep our patriarchal white supremacist powers in place and keep dividing American communities so that no one shows up and stands up for each other?
Yeah, it's hard to imagine that there are people out there who are not impacted, maybe just unaware. But I think let's kind of take a step back, actually, before I get into those details. From a government perspective, what do you think is the biggest issue right now?
From a government perspective, I would say that the federal government has a really free rein over issuing policy, and it's getting very little pushback from the Republican Party for a lot of these policies, and not even as much. I'm not hearing much from the Democrats either. And this eerie silence, you have a couple of people who are speaking out, and they're able to pass or policies or sign executive orders, which are really dismantling, in my humble opinion, American democracy as we've known it. But I think to take it even a further step back, it's illustrating the cracks that we have in American society that have existed so long that we put Band-Aids on these problems that are now showing that there's so many problems that our communities are facing that we've not recognized or spoken up or found solutions to that they are capitalizing on and taking advantage of.
Do you think that there's been like a sense of complacency in our communities? Like things are just kind of good enough?
Yeah, especially I think since the pandemic, I've noticed how individualistic we are as society, and
Yeah, it was really noticeable during that time.
very right, like masks, vaccines,
Yeah.
6 feet social distancing, all of that, making sure that we collectively are protecting ourselves rather than the me and the I. And now we're seeing that now too is if I'm not directly impacted, I don't care.
So going back to this slow, I would argue it's not even that slow, dismantling of in my opinion, dismantling of the Constitution and our branches of government the way that they're supposed to operate. I think one thing that you said that was very interesting is you're not hearing anything from the Democrats. That has been the party, as a 501c3, not necessarily endorsing anybody, but that has been the party that tends to be voted for in community that we tend to see as aligning with our belief system. One of the most fascinating things to me with them right now is what's happening in New York. The mayor's election in New York. What are you seeing there?
I love him.
Same.
He is so great. And Zoran Mamdani, fantastic. And I hope he hears this. Fantastic. But I'm going to take a step back. We're going back and forth a lot. And so I was at the DNC and last year, and then I was at the protests 4 blocks away. No one from the convention was at the protests, and the protesters were posting everything from Gaza to food insecurity, reproductive rights, every issue that liberals, progressives are fighting for. And no one from the protests was invited at the convention. They were actually blocked from going and speaking up against these issues.
Interesting.
And what you had instead was a literal wall of police officers between the protests and the United Center so that the protests couldn't go in that direction and they had to go there. So at that point, I called it. I said, she is not going to win because the party is not listening to a base that is taking for granted. They say we speak for you, we represent you, we're listening to you. But in reality, that's not what was happening. And now, and at the same time, they said, vote blue no matter what.
Right.
This is your alternative. And I go back to my earlier comment is I think we deserve this reality we're in because it's illustrating these cracks that we've let go unnoticed for so long. But now we have New York, where this guy, 33-year-old, is talking about things just to make the lives of all New Yorkers better, right?
Right. Subsidized daycare, $30 minimum wage, government-run grocery stores. Why do I know this man's platform?
No, because you see how your life could be so much better if you had similar, and the people you work with and who work for you and people who live around you, how much more beautiful and fulfilled and easier their lives would be just by those little things. And collectively, they're little things, right? If we spent even a small percentage of our defense budget on supporting our communities, look at all these positive changes that we could do. And he recognizes it and he speaks about it. The challenge I'm seeing, though, is now we're seeing he won fair and square. I think I saw somewhere that he had the most votes of any New York primary ever who came out to support him. But what we're hearing is a huge rise in Islamophobia. People are calling his immigration status. They're finding like obscure things that he said or checked off in college. And we've all done stupid things in college.
Oh, yeah, his college application.
Like that he put like black or African. He was born in Uganda, right? Like, he is African. And but that's, I'm, going very tangentially now. And but to bring it back to him is, his own party is not supporting him. Now they're slowly coming around. And what happened to this vote blue no matter what? Why is it different? Is it because he's Muslim? Is it because he's a son of immigrants? Like, why do we have these different stories? But so is Harris, right? Like, why are we so willing to throw him under the bus and not stand up when he's experiencing hate? And all he wants to do is create a better life for the people who he's going to be living with. And he won the most votes ever, right? And so we should
because people are excited about him.
Excited about him. They see the hope in him. They see the energy in him. And I feel what he's doing is really, really, really showing what courage at this time should look like. There was an article I read recently about uplifting both him and Mahmoud Khalil, the Colombian student who was arrested basically and held for several months for protesting in Colombia. And just talking about like what they are willing to give up to speak out for their truths and rights. And we're not seeing so many of our leaders be willing to do that. What are we putting on our line? And we all have different family situations and levels of privilege. And I'm very cognizant and aware of that. But we're at a time where we need to start showing up for the people around us. We need to be able to and comfortable to face our truths and speak our truths, and be willing to take some risks in order to build this world that we all really believe in.
I had this conversation with somebody when we were taking a controversial stance as an organization, and one person was like really for doing this as an organization, but was not implementing this in their own personal life because they didn't want to lose friends. And what I said to them, I'm like, it's really easy to have values when your privilege is not challenged. When you have nothing to lose and there's nothing on the line, it's really easy to say the way things should be. But values really do show up when you have something to lose, because what are you going to stand on at that point, right?
Agreed. I work with a lot of organizations, and as we discuss values of an organization, I'm like, who's funding you? Do they believe in the same things that you have listed on your website as your organizational values? What are their stances on these different issues that you claim that you support or stand up with? And oftentimes people are not willing to risk alienating either partnerships or funding because they're so dependent on them. And like, as I mentioned before, we all have our own different levels of risk that we're willing to do, but it's at a time where we have to start drawing more solid lines of this is who we are and what we believe in, and be willing to speak out against the injustices that we see both here and globally.
It makes me think about going back to the Democrats. One of the things that Kamala Harris did when she was running was go more moderate. And so there's this idea that you're going to alienate your base if you go too progressive. And so that's kind of what I think this thread that you speak of kind of goes all the way through. It's happening in our interpersonal lives, but it's happening in politics as well, where we think that the way to court independents or people who are not voting is through go more moderate, and it ends up looking like both parties are two sides of the same coin.
They are, and I think we were seeing more of that, of how they're pursuing corporate interests and trying to, I mean, I feel the right's becoming more and more right, and the left is becoming more in the middle, and I think we've outgrown the two-party system here in America, and we don't have parties that represent. I don't think we'll ever.
I don't think Elon Musk is the answer to that.
But we don't have I feel I don't have a party who even represents 50% of what I truly believe in anymore. And it's who is really thinking of being in my needs and my values these days. And if my only option is these two parties, am I going to then be condemned for not supporting either of them, or is it going to be the lesser of two evils? And a lot of people, I think, have started to think that. We're at least at the local level now. We're seeing so many more choices of candidates, and what we see in New York is, I think, a result of that is people saw someone who they resonated with that they wanted to support. But to your point also of courage, I see every time I post about more children being killed in Palestine, for example, the number of followers who leave me, or even the messages I get, I can't believe you're posting this, why are you being anti-Semitic and all this stuff. And it's a challenge where I by no means, I'm an anti-hate trainer, right? I go out and speak against hate based by all communities because I truly believe no one deserves hate based on how they identify. But seeing how we've normalized hate towards some communities and not some, and those who are standing up against that hate has become normalized, has become part of this fabric, where that is then used to put fear, as you mentioned earlier, where people aren't willing to stand up and speak out when they feel they should.
Yeah, that actually brings me to this thought of cancel culture. What is your thought about that? Because it's happening more on the left, and we do it to one another when you don't align exactly with our belief system.
Yeah, I struggle with cancel culture. I think there's definitely lines one should not cross, but I think an opportunity to educate and have conversations. With the rise of social media, I was in college when Facebook first came out, right? And saw the boom of it. And, now with algorithms, I remember over the last year, my Instagram has been Gaza and supermodels, right? And it's what you like and what then they keep showing you because they want to give you more of that content to
Mine
do
is
so.
Politics and puppies.
Yeah, right. And it's then I take a step back. I'm what am I not seeing? What am I not learning? What are the different viewpoints I'm not exposed to? If I just stay in my echo chambers, am I really growing as a person and as a leader too? So what efforts are we trying to take to understand other points of view? And why have we moved past healthy, respectful debates. One of my best friends in law school, he was very, this is pre-Trump, right, where Republicans could still be accepted to a certain extent.
Like a McCain Republican.
Yeah, right? And very Republican. And we'd go out and we'd sit and debate policy all night long, and at the end give each other hugs and like still see each other as human and still have these basic values of human dignity and life and justice, but had a different view on economic and what like gun control looked like and what reproductive rights looks like and all of that stuff, and could at least talk about it, even not agree on everything, but at least see each other as human in our viewpoints. And I think we've gotten away from that. So when we talk about cancel culture, I often feel we're too quick to judge. But I also feel there's issues that there's lines drawn, and if you cross it, like, we should not giving you a space or platform anymore.
Yeah, and I think I wrestle with that as well, because there are things that are so egregious that's like, how do you continue to entertain this space? Is canceling them the right method, though? Does that move us towards progress?
Probably not.
Right.
Probably not. But also we live in a society which is 24-hour news cycle. Like, what happens today, tomorrow can change over, like if the script's flipped right away, like people we condemn yesterday, like are fine tomorrow, right? Like, so I'm not too worried about it. But I think if we're going to be so quick to cancel and so quick to judge, I think it shows regression in society.
And so that actually, again, I keep going back to New York because the little rumor I saw on social media is that, what's his name, Cuomo, is planning to run as an independent. We can't have a good thing.
We can't, right? And some people like to stay in power no matter what. Some people don't know how to lose with grace and dignity.
But my understanding is that the Democrats are backing him.
And that goes to my earlier point of there's so much inherent anti-immigrant and anti-Muslim hate just built into the fabric of this country. If the rhetoric that's been used by even the Democrats against Mamdani was made in a similar sense towards Jewish people, there would have been outrage everywhere. But we've normalized what anti-Muslim hate and rhetoric could look like. People can say like, oh, he's Muslim, he's a terrorist, no one's batting an eye. And that's problematic. And because of that, his party's like, we will support this guy to run against him, even though he's a terrible, terrible person. And
we've already noticed that as a country, we accept sexual assault more than we accept apparently lying on your college application or what you feel is misrepresentation. Because I'm with you. I don't know that it was entirely a lie. But also, going back, that kind of also says to me what we think about women, where we think that sexual assault is an acceptable thing to forgive from somebody, because they're a good politician or whatever.
I mean, look, case after case after case, right? We had the musician last week, and I'm forgetting his name. Diddy's case, right? Like, and we barely bat an eye when these issues come up.
Oh my God,
some would argue,
comments on that were awful.
Some would argue, I would argue sometimes that like we applaud these men who get away with it, and rather than hold them accountable and say you are a disgrace of a human being for all of these things that you've done, and you're not being held accountable for it. I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted as a man that we've normalized predatory actions and behavior, and that society still and our court system still and are not holding these people accountable.
But I think all of this has a common thread, and that's like both parties, our entire government, except for what we're calling the progressive Democrats or the socialist Democrats, just don't care about us. If you don't fit a very specific demographic, and I think this is the thing, right? That's why that election, Zoran's election, had so many votes. People feel like they care about them, like he cares about them. But for the rest of us, one of the things I noticed in the last election is the amount of folks that did not turn out to vote either way. It had some districts that went to Biden or went to Obama, even went to Trump in the past, just didn't vote at all because they didn't feel like they had a good candidate to go towards.
And as New York City showed, more people showed up for that primary than showed up for the general election. And I think more and more our politicians are all about how do we stay in power rather than we're elected to serve our people. Like, F it, if we're not reelected, at least we're going to do our job while we're in office. We even look at our presidents who their first term's all about winning reelection rather than what can we really do to serve the people who brought us into office. And we see this from local level all the way up to federal levels. And if we talk about Chicago, a lot of the challenges I feel our mayor faces is that he hasn't been as pro-business as some of his predecessors have been. He's been trying, at least rhetorically, to be one for the communities, and there's been some pushback against that, right? And stances he's taken and things like that, because when you are advocating for the most vulnerable, that means you have to take away from some of those in powers and those that have money, and not everyone is comfortable with that.
Going back to values, this is a thing that we often talk about at Alternatives because, we do our fellowship. We run an internal pipeline where we talk about equity and leadership. But when we talk, there's an exercise that we do when we do a budget. And it's hilarious to see how quickly staff throw budgets, their own values out the window. They don't want to pay a livable wage because they can't make ends meet, et cetera, right? And so a lot of what we talk about is that it's really, again, easy to talk about equity when you're not the one giving up your own privilege. And when we're talking about equity, when we're talking about class solidarity, when we're talking about any of these things, it means giving up some of your own privilege for somebody else to have some.
It goes back to the individualism that we have. It's like small circles, I feel like. In Europe and other parts of the world, we see this big circle where government's trying to think. We see more socialist movements where you pay higher taxes, but more of your needs are made. Basic income, health care. You're not
1 year parental leave.
Yeah, things like that, right? Where we imagine if you got a 1 year paid parental leave.
Amazing.
And with the promise of your job back, right? But here...
But also let me not go down that tangent, actually. Continue.
But here we have these small circles where first it's me and then my immediate family. And we have certain communities, I think like some Indian and some Jewish communities have done it well, where they've brought in their communities and they've built power and making sure that they're all taken care of when they first immigrated to this country, which is a beautiful thing to see. But beyond that, it's so me, my immediate family. And I used to be on a local school council in the South Loop, and we saw so many families move to the suburbs where they could, if their children wouldn't get into selective enrollment high schools, because they could guarantee that they went to a good school. I'm like, you're in elementary school right now. Why are you talking about moving to the suburbs? Why aren't you using this time now to build our high schools into schools that you'd be proud to send your kids to? But we don't think that way. They think just me and my child, what does he need to succeed, rather than what do me, my child, his classmates, our neighbors need to succeed.
It's also an extremely short-sighted style of thinking about things, right? Because the thing I was going to get on parental leave specifically is what's fascinating to me is what we've known for a while in terms of being able to be present for your child and what that turns into in terms of school outcomes, mental health outcomes. Even I did a fellowship some years back around early childhood, and my specific memo was on intergenerational. And so all of the predictors from parents having certain resources for their child to be more successful in life whatsoever. So even if you want to look at it from just a strictly capitalism lens, investing in communities now means more revenue in the future and a more productive society. Even if you want to be that 100% simplistic agree. About it.
My mom was fortunate enough that she could stay home with us, drive us to all of our after school and weekend activities, make sure she was there when we woke up and got to school, make sure she was there when we got home, make our food for us. If we missed a bus, we had buses taking us directly to school that she could drive us, make sure we got our homework done, make sure we got to sleep at a normal time. And I look at a lot of the students that when I served on the local school council who don't have all those things. And that means either they're playing caretaker for their younger siblings, or they have to take a job to help support the family, or their parents are working several jobs that they can't be that present. That has direct impact on students and their success and all of those things. And to your point, we're not thinking about that at all. And we not only does it go to the individualistic aspect, but we're also a society that is willing to push others down in order for us to rise. Mm-hmm. And we're okay with others having less if I can have more.
Yeah.
Keep up with everything going on at Alternatives or to donate, you can visit us at our website, alternativesyouth.org. You can also follow us at Alternatives Inc. on Instagram or at Alternatives Youth on Facebook. If you want to keep up with Bessie, you can follow her on Instagram and TikTok at Bessie_Alcantara. Thanks for listening.